Hey everyone, welcome to our first episode of the new Jewish year 5785 of the Kosher Intuitive. Today's episode is going to be departing from friendships that no longer service us and how to spot a dangerous situation on a date. Now, in light of recent events, I decided to rope these two topics together. I recently had to actually depart from a friendship because of what happened to her on a date. And it was, in my mind, a slow-moving evolution to how she got there. I feel that this was an inevitable thing that was going to happen. In my mind, this was an inevitable turn of events that was going to happen to this woman. And I figured this is, unfortunately, not as uncommon as people may think. Women find themselves more often than men in dangerous situations on dates. Not all the time, but it happens. And today's episode, we are going to talk about how these things happen and what we as women need to be doing to avoid these things happening to us. Okay? Let me set the stage. The girlfriend who I recently departed from had been, and this was someone who is well into their 30s, neighboring 40. All right. This is an individual who has been married. This is an individual who had a very, very, very traumatic divorce, and there are children involved. And I am the type of person where, when you come to the Kosher Intuitive as a client, you are never judged, ever. 75% of our clients, and I say our because the Kosher Intuitive is one company in a network of companies that are dealing with professionals who are using human phenomena like myself to help people, to assist people with the problems they have in their lives. Now, 75% of the clients that I see are usually dealing with some sort of sexual trauma. And when we have clients, especially at the Kosher Intuitive, myself or any of my colleagues associated with this business, we are never going to victim shame, victim blame. We're never going to be upset with the reason why you're using the services. You have to understand something. People come and utilize my services when someone, God forbid, goes missing. People hire me in God forbid situations. But at a certain point, we do have the right and responsibility as adults to look at the people around us in our lives. And the word that comes to mind is not judgment. It's observe. Okay? We need to be able to observe the behaviors of our friends, especially I turned 40 this year. I hold myself to a very high standard in absolutely everything I do. I want to be the best at everything I do. I want to go full force. I want to live my best life. I want to be the best in my careers. I want to be the best friend to my friends. And one of the ways that I do that for the people in my life is showing up for them without any bullshit. Okay? You know, your friend, Yael Meisels as a friend, not as an intuitive healer and like garbage, trauma, or drama. I'm not a person who makes sinister choices in my private life. You're never going to have to bail me out of jail, as much as I joke about these things all the time. Okay, sorry. Looks like we're having a bad connection. So, what I was saying is, you know, in my private life, I keep it 100. Very appropriate. No nonsense going on. Nothing that, I have no secrets. You know, there's nothing, you know, very few things that go on in my private life that I probably wouldn't do on the podcast. You know, everybody in the whole wide world knows I'm a big fan of marijuana, always have been. I microdose CBD during the day and smoke THC in the evenings for meditation and to unwind. Everybody knows that. And I have been starting, I think it happened around 38, where I started taking an inventory of the behaviors of the people that I allow in my life and consider a friend of mine. You know, what kind of person are you in your daily life, and what type of situations do you participate in? And that will dictate to me what standard of living you adhere to, and whether or not I believe you're a person that I need as a friend in my life. If you're a person that does dramatic things, if you're a person who is loose with men, if you're a person who has trouble with accountability, these are things that as a friend, you and I are probably not going to congeal. These are things that I hold very dear, and I do not accept these things as friends of mine, of behaviors of friends of mine. That means if you want to be a friend of mine, you got to be batting at 100 on those things. I don't accept promiscuity in girlfriends of mine. So if you're a promiscuous person, the chances of you and I being friends are zero. I have no respect for it. And there was a woman who I befriended during a divorce, and I know divorce brings out the worst in all of us. You know, divorce, I've been divorced twice before 30. I mean, you know, divorce can bring out the most egregious behaviors in, you know, within humanity. Divorce can bring out the worst person you know how to be, you know, for better or worse. And I understand that going through a divorce, sometimes you need that egregious behavior to protect yourself. I certainly understand that. But with this particular woman, I noticed that there was no productivity to the trauma. There was none of the things that a healthy person would do to get themselves well going on. And, you know, even though I'm a life coach, I am not a therapist. And I do not pretend to be a therapist in place of a life coach, because a life coach and a therapist do not do the same things. Anyways, after watching with this particular girlfriend of mine for 2.5 years, the same pattern over and over again, a woman well into her 30s with 2 children, chasing after younger men, going to bed with them immediately, inevitably being dumped by these gentlemen, and watching this for 2.5 years, or the watching her in the forlorn, where she would have to dump these younger gentlemen who were just using her for whatever opportunities she was able to present these gentlemen. You know, I observed, I did not judge, I observed for 2.5 years. This individual recently went on a date, same type of date she's been on for the past 2.5 years. Meets a gentleman on the internet, you know, goes on the date, consumes large sums of alcohol, and then, you know, participates in some sort of, you know, one-night stand. This time it didn't go the way it usually goes, in which case this young lady, I wouldn't call her young. I'm not calling anybody 38 years old young. This woman found herself in a very dangerous situation. After the sex happened, she was lying in the bed with this man, and he decided to put a pillow over her face and proceed to suffocate her. Now, her reaction to this event that ultimately did save her life showed this gentleman that she was the wrong candidate to victimize. Now, what does that mean in layman's terms, right? Now, just like we know from studying pedophilia, a pedophile will pick their victim, so will a rapist, so will a murderer. A person is not going to murder somebody who's going to put up a dirty fight, usually. If they don't think this murder is going to go smoothly, they're usually going to take a step back and say, this is probably the wrong person to victimize. After the event, this girlfriend called me, explained to me what happened, and asked me if she could book an intuitive session with me. Now, let me make something very clear to you. The Yael you get as a buddy and the Yael you get in an intuitive energy healing and coaching session is not always necessarily the same person. When you seek to do an intuitive session with me, you are going to see a reflection of your choices. Okay? So you should not do a session with me if and until you are ready to see a reflection of your choices. If you're not ready for that, you have no business coming to the Kosher Intuitive. There's the reason intuitive is in the title. It came out in her session that this gentleman's full intention of the date was to target her for crime. This was very difficult for her to digest, and she tried to then be upset with me. We don't tolerate that here. Yael Meisels does not tolerate that behavior. I do not, will not, and cannot stand for illy behaved women in my life who create their own problems to the point where they could get themselves physically killed and then are allowed to call themselves my girlfriends. We all have our standards. And I had to decide with this particular lady, your lifestyle, as much as I may care for you as a person, is beneath my standard of living. It just is. If these are the types of things you are doing in your life, in private, you are not the type of person I am able to consider a friend. We're like oil and water. We're like, if you take Velcro and try to stick it to a brick wall, it's probably going to stick for a second, but it's certainly not going to hold there. And at some point, this is one isolated story, but in the 21 years that I have been coaching people, mostly women, do you think I haven't heard another story like that? I've heard of women being drugged with trazodone. I've heard of awful things happening to women on dates, where at a certain point, we as women, especially women on the other side of 35, have to take into consideration, how do I hold myself? What do I stand for? What does it say to a man when I go on a date and I drink like an alcoholic, whether you are or you're not? What does this say to that man? You say a lot to a man by how you behave on a date. When you show up on a date dressed appropriately, not dressed like a prostitute, behaving like a lady, not acting like an alcoholic, and not jumping in the bed, you are setting yourself at a very high standard where this man knows that you do not behave this way as a general rule. And believe me, I know this from the 21 years I've been coaching, 15 of which I have coached, exclusively for relationships. Believe me when I tell you, men know if you're going to go to bed on the first date, on how you've conducted yourself in the communication prior to the date. The men know, based on how you're dressed, if you're going to go to bed on the first date. And the men also know, if you go to bed with them on the first date, you go to bed with everybody on the first date. Men know if you're easy or not. And in the 21 years that I have been coaching men and women all over the world, I will tell you, the only men that I personally have coached that have married women that have gotten intimate on a first date, the only time that it has ever been an acceptable behavior to a man to the point that he would still consider you a marital option is in the event there was a long distance situation where the man and the woman took a series of time to get to know one another, where the gentleman, in the Jewish world, I'm set up with people, being Breslov. Breslov Jews are typically found in two places, France and Israel. I understand Brooklyn has the community, but it's a very black hat community, and it's not really typically a community that I would jive with, so to speak. So when I am seeking to go out on a date with a man, typically he is from France or Israel, where there is almost always a long distance situation involved. Okay. And the men that I know who have married women, who have gone to bed with them on the first meeting, have typically been people who have courted in a long distance situation. Okay, that doesn't make it okay, but I'm saying that is typically the situations that I've seen men willing to overlook that fact. I don't know many men who have married women that have gone, I don't know any. I've never coached one, in fact, who has gone out with a woman that he had met online, spoken to, let's say, 2 to 5 times on the phone, if that, or even, if they even have exchanged phone numbers and then, slept with her and then, saw her again. Usually those women turn into a glorified friends with benefits situation, while the man who sleeps with these women looks for a woman who has more class and cares more for herself. That's typically how that goes down, ladies. Another point that I've seen a disgusting amount of is women. What in the hell goes on in hotel rooms? Do you think you are going to be invited one-on-one in a hotel room with a man for anything other than sexual intercourse? Because if you think that, you're a dodo bird. What, does he have his pet lion upstairs? Does he have does he have the magic jewels in the hotel room? Quit kidding yourself. No man is ever taking you to a hotel for any other reason than to fuck you. Period. Unless there is a gang of people and it's if a hotel is involved at all, it's for one reason. So sex can be had. Okay? Oh, Steve, you're such a stinker. Steve Nipper goes, his pet boa constrictor. Yeah, right. Seriously, Steve. You would only be showing these women your pet boa constrictor. Women, I want to feel bad. Okay, I do. I want to feel something other than rage for the women who walk right into sexual assault. I do. But at a certain point, when do we have to ask ourselves, what was I doing going into a hotel with a man, thinking there was anything other than sex that was going to occur? A man is never inviting you into a hotel room, ladies, or back to his apartment, ladies, to not have sex with you. And this needs to be, there is no Shyla. And for those of you who don't know what Shyla means, that means question. There is no question here that if a man barely knows you and you are being invited back to his home or to his hotel room, that you are being given an invitation for nothing other than sexual intercourse. And thank God Steve Nipper is agreeing with me because he knows this is the God's honest truth. Men who respect a woman are not pulling her into their home to screw her immediately. They're just not. And at a certain point, women are going to have to take accountability for how they've conducted themselves on a date. And yes, no does mean no, and I am not negating that. But you have to ask yourself, how did this happen? What did I do to get here? Okay? We are letting people throw the word around victim who live dangerous, and morally corrupted lifestyles. And then when the dangerous and moral corruption of their choices finally does get them injured or hurt, then they're a victim? No, they've been a victim of their choices for a very long time. Women, you need to stop being victims of your choices. No man who is going to respect you long term is interested in getting between your legs if he's a stranger to you. He's just not. And we as women need to learn how to better carry ourselves, especially above a certain age. And you would not believe how many times I've had to say ad nauseum to women who are educated, with money, with assets, with something to lose, with children. These are not, let me tell you something. My services start at $350 a session. Okay? $350 a session is where my services start. 20-year-olds can't afford me unless their parents are paying for it. Now, majority of the people I see are grown adults that nobody taught how to be a grown adult. And we have to get to a place where common sense reigns and how you behave to a man, with a man, in front of a man matters. I would never go on a date with someone who doesn't like pot. That's in my prerequisite questions. If you don't like pot, you're not the man for me. Sorry. Because this is never going to change. Sorry. It's like brushing my teeth and washing my hair. I smoke pot to keep me off the 6 o'clock news, so I don't throw an adult tantrum over all the shenanigans that I have to help other adults deal with, because I actually know not to behave that way. But I actually have to help other adults not behave that way on a regular basis, and that does become taxing. It does. Now, when Steve Nipper says, a man willing to take his time with a woman gets to know a woman without sex isn't going to use you for sex. Amen, Steve. Amen. Amen. From your mouth to God's ears, that's the truth. Women are tired, and I hear this ad nauseum. Women are tired of being used for sex. But what I don't see women tired of doing, okay, is I find few women tired of the behavior that leads them to a place that gets them used for sex. That's the shit we got to get tired of. And I personally have grown tired of the women who do these things and can no longer befriend these people because these problems are trash to me. And I don't want it anywhere near my life. We all have to get to a place and a point where it's like, a doctor in a hospital does not get to decide what patient's life they save today. We as energy healers and practitioners and intuitive energy healers and practitioners, we don't get to decide who we help. We don't. We have no say in the matter of who needs our services, but we absolutely do have a say in whom we are going to spend our time with. And we all have the right and responsibility to take a look at the people around us and say, does this relationship service me to my highest and best good? Does it? Does this relationship service me to my highest and best good? Is having this friend by my side going to elevate me to my highest and best potential? If the answer is yes, keep that bitch in your corner. If the answer is no, you take that hoe out with the trash and never look back. And even if you do it with tears in your eyes, like I did with this woman who almost got suffocated to death, you do it. Take out the trash in your life wherever you find it. Garbage is garbage. Would you take the ashes from a joint and try to piece it back together and make a joint? Probably not. What makes you think in all circumstances you are going to be able to be the one to salvage this broken person? It's not our responsibility to fix all broken people. Sometimes the best course of action to fix the broken person is to remove yourself from the life of the broken person and say, you're not at the standard where I need you to be to justify holding space in my life. That's sometimes the loss that individual needs to feel, because they will never learn otherwise. You know, I never, especially having zero family, and I have zero outside of my children and my cats, there is not a relative, dead or alive, that I am all that interested in, okay? I do not ever take the termination of a friendship lightly. Believe me, when I decide to cut ties with a friend, this was a decision made with the utmost level of seriousness and thought. This was not a knee-jerk decision. This was a decision made over time. And 9 times out of 10, the individual was told, you know, should X, Y, and Z happen again, it will result in my departure. And I am not a person who threatens. I am a person who explains. There are consequences to choices, and I will hold people to the consequences, just like I do with my children. And I have seen most adults are just bigger children, especially when they were not parented properly. And let's be real, most of us weren't. And I had to almost, I can't even say almost, I had to take, it took me 30 years to undo the damage done to me in childhood. Truly did. You know, I thank God. Amen, Mia. It took me 30 years to completely undo the absolute bullshit of the environment that I was raised in. I was raised by a grossly mentally ill person, who victimized themselves again and again, victimized herself. You know, I hate to say it, my late mother was a victim of her own stupidity and choices. You know, we can only blame parents to such a degree. How you were raised at a certain point really doesn't matter. It's where you are today and who you've decided to be with everything that has come in. you know, as being a victim of child abuse and realizing that I had years of damage to undo because I was raised by a victim of child abuse that was enabled in every direction around her. This woman was enabled in her abusive, vile behavior. Um, you know, fixing yourself and fixing, it's very hard to fix yourself, and it's a decision every day. It's a decision every day that you are not going to be what's broken in this pattern. And you have to be dedicated in that commitment. It's not easy to be a strong person. It's not easy to be a woman with standards and morals. And say, you know what? I'm not going to imitate the lifestyle entrusted upon me from childhood. I was raised in a terrible situation. My mother lived with a man who was not her husband. I think that's gross. I don't condone that behavior from anybody. I don't care what your religious affliction is. If you are living under the roof, then you go get that blessed by God. And if you don't have a person willing to do that, then that is God telling you that you are in the wrong relationship. You know, I watched my mother just do atrocious things. I mean, we could be here all day, but I'm saying, as someone who's had to re-raise themselves and undo years of damage and had to take a look at the nightmares that were supposed to be my parental figures, give me a break. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. There was nothing about that woman or her lifestyle that I found godly, attractive, or okay. The only thing my biological mother and I have in common today is I inherited her house. That is it. I don't stand for filthy behavior, no matter whom it comes from. No matter who. And I will throw filthy behavior out the door no matter where it's coming from. I don't care how much you think I like you. I don't care how much you think I love you. And I will love you and throw you in the trash. I absolutely won't stand for this shit. Oh, thank you so much, Beth. Apparently I look very nice with makeup on. I can clean this shit up really well. The bottom line here is that we cannot continue to find ourselves at a certain place and point in life where we are repeatedly being victimized. Because if that is happening, that is something you need to ask yourself. How did I get here? Why does this happen to me? And what am I doing to facilitate these actions that are happening in my life? These are patterns that we create, because I will tell you, people negate to realize they have free will, and lots of it. I cannot stand when I get in a session with someone who wants to talk about all the things God did to them. Let me tell you, we are more often than not victims of our own, you are more often than not a victim of your own free will before you are a victim of an action done against you by the Lord. You are more often a victim of your own choice than you are a victim of an action done against you by the Lord. More often than not. And we all have to ask ourselves, why do these things occur? And you have to understand, you, me, all of us, we are the common denominator between all of our successes and all of our failures. We are the common denominator. It is me. You are the common denominator in all of your successes and failures. I am the common denominator in all of my successes and failures. If I am unhappy with where my life is today, that is my problem that I need to deal with. It does not matter that I was raised by a lunatic. I am unlunaticking the situation. I will not spend the rest of my life angry at a lunatic mother. I will not. She is irrelevant at this point. She is dead in the ground. I am in control of the things that I need to do. I am in control of the things that have to be done. You ladies are in control of how you behave on a date until you take a drink. Now you know what and whom you become once the alcohol starts flowing, don't ya? Don't ya? I know that when I start drinking excessively, I become very funny. And then I usually, if I'm in a comedy situation, find a buddy, and then we start crying about God. That's how that's going to go down. All right? That's what's going to happen if I'm under excessive alcohol. Some people become very violent. And when you put yourself in a situation with a strange man whom you don't know, and alcohol is involved, and something terrible does happen, at some point, and this is a habit for you, you have to ask yourself, what can I do differently for these things not to happen to me? I'm not negating the responsibility of the man. I'm saying you're responsible too because you showed up. There has to be accountability all around. And I understand there are going to be people who don't like that, and I'm sorry for that. But at a certain point, how we hold ourselves, how we carry ourselves, how we present ourselves, and how we communicate ourselves has to matter. Because when a woman portrays herself to be a certain way, shows up on the date, acts like the horse she said she was going to be, you are showing a man he is within his right to treat you that way. And you have no reason to be upset with him for treating you any way different. And you have no reason to expect this man to give you any kind of commitment. Because when you don't project yourself as a woman worthy of commitment, you are not attracting commitment. Let that sink in. You know, people have asked me many times in my life, how are you still single? I'll explain that in a minute. There's no bullshit here. The bullshit people don't get through the door. That is why I'm still single. The good people, you know what, that I've dated, it just hasn't been a fit. The right one, he's out there. I'll find him, I'm sure. But until that happens, I am not one of these women who need these, what I call filler dick, literally, to entertain myself until something of value comes my way. I actually don't need shenanigans and garbage with men to occupy my time until a decent man shows up. You know, and so many women are willing to tolerate this garbage, and we have to ask ourselves why. Why are these women willing to deal with this garbage? It's upsetting, it's frustrating, it's disgusting. And too many women are breaking their own hearts, behaving like harlots on dates, and then unhappy with the results when they shouldn't have behaved that way to begin with. And this, you know what? I didn't mention religion one time, did I? Anyone watching this show, religion wasn't mentioned once. It doesn't have to be about religion. It's about human decency and self-respect. And anybody of any religious faith can have that. Whether it doesn't matter to whom you pray. Any woman can have self-respect. Any woman can decide not to be a whore. You can. I believe in you. We need to be better, ladies. If we're sick and tired of being treated like whores, we need to raise the standard completely. And if you are tired of your girlfriends behaving like whores, there's one way to be rid of this behavior. Be rid of it. Don't have girlfriends who are immoral. Don't have girlfriends who are whores. I don't, because the minute I realize that you are not going through something, this is a habited behavior, this is a pattern, this is a problem, you are by Felicia. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. I have no patience for this shit. And nor should anyone with moral fabric and human decency. And this has, again, nothing at all to do with Judaism. It has to do with human decency. And human decency is something all of us should have, regardless of religion. Women find themselves in dangerous situations on dates all the time. And most of the time, it is at least 50% their fault based on their behavior. When these women are acting the way they do prior to the date, before, in the conversation, I'd like to know before the dates happen where these women get mad. Oh, the guy had sex with me and never called me again. I'd like to know what that conversation was leading up to that date. Because no way in the world am I going to believe y'all was talking about the weather. Probably not. In fact, I'm certain you probably weren't. It was probably a bunch of sexual garbage. You got on the date, got drunk, had sex, homie never called you again. Do better, women. Do better. Quit screaming and crying, victim. Don't behave like this in the first place. With that said, I am going to wish you all a very good day. Before I wish you all a good day, I want to also tell you something. Women, especially those with daughters. Now, I have boys. My children respect women in the utmost with the utmost respect. I don't know how I got wonder children. I did. I have two of the kindest, sweetest, most loyal and loving little boys that walk the planet, who I have no doubt will treat their women like the queens they are one day. But for those of you raising daughters and sons, your daughters are looking at you as an example of what to be like. Your daughters see how you act. They see how you react. They see how you date. And believe me, with a pair of 12-year-olds who are in my business like socks on my feet, believe me, once your kids hit 9, 10, 11, and so forth, you ain't hiding shit from these children. I'll be honest with you, and I don't have any garbage to hide from my children. I really don't. They could go through my phone, my room. There's nothing to hide from these people. I would say 8 or 9 is about the age where your shenanigans are very find outable to your kids. And you have to ask yourself a serious question. If you don't want your daughters going into hotel rooms and fucking strangers, if you don't want your sons to be the types of men that take women into hotel rooms to fuck them, that starts with who you are. Okay? And I have 21 years of experience to tell me that I'm right. So I'm going to trust what I say over what any of you think. I'm right. Believe me. And with that said, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. And that was our first episode of the Kosher Intuitive for 5785. You guys have an amazing day. Wishing you all an incredible year. Thank you so much for, from the bottom of my heart, actually. This business was a dream that I thought would never come true. It's a reality. I'm known all over the world. What the following has done for me, what your support has done for me, what your love, your friendship, your prayers, your kindness. We make most of our numbers for the podcast on Facebook, not YouTube. For the people who have followed me, believed in me, believed me, I thank you. How do you say thank you to that? It's beyond anything I could have imagined in the business. It grows every day. I'm sorry that there's so much pain in the world. I'm glad, though, that the things that have made me different my whole life and have alienated me from the world has somehow been able to alleviate some of that suffering. And for that, I am grateful. And you people, oh God, what you have done for my existence on this planet is a miracle. And the Kosher Intuitive is alive because of the people that would not be told they were crazy, because of the people that knew there was something going on with them. And when nobody believed you, I did. But when nobody believed me, you did. And we are in this together. And thank you so much. And hoping that God just blesses all of you in all of your endeavors. And may we immediately merit to see redemption. Thank you all so much. God bless you, and wishing you a great day and a great year.